Hey guys, Omni here. So yesterday I saw Spiral from the Book of Saw in theaters, and I gotta say that I was really looking forward to this movie. I'm a huge fan of the Saw franchise. I really loved the first six. I still haven't seen Saw 3D or the final chapter, whichever title you want to go with, nor the second attempt to revitalize the franchise, Jigsaw. I haven't seen either of those just yet. So my knowledge really just stays to the first six, the main core thread set up by John Kramer and how that kind of came to a close. Now, I'm not sure what happened in the final chapter and all that, so can't really speak for that. But this is the latest attempt to revitalize this franchise, and it was actually spearheaded by the star himself, Chris Rock. He was the one that went to Lionsgate with this pitch for a concept to bring the franchise back. Apparently, he's a huge fan of the franchise and had some ideas on how to bring it back to a modern audience. And I gotta commend that. The movie itself is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, who is a veteran of the Saw franchise. He directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. Some of my favorites, some not so much of the franchise itself. So I think Saw 3 is probably my favorite of the films. The writers of this one, the screenplay and whatnot, has been brought to life by the Jigsaw writers, which again, I didn't hear good things about that movie, but I also haven't seen it myself, so I won't say anything about it. But Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger, I believe, were the writers behind that film. Alongside Chris Rock in this, we also have Marisol Nichols, Max Minghella, and, of course, Sam Jackson is in here as well, though not as much as you would be led to believe. This movie is all over the place. It is a mismatch of tones, and the beginning of the opening of this movie is very much a very Saw-like opening. You definitely open with a trap, a situation, and basically the springboard for the story going forward. Immediately following that, you're almost in a completely different movie with Chris Rock stand-ups being performed in between acts. And I don't know if this is just him improvising or this was actually written into the script, but this seems like he's just rolling with the jokes, rolling with the punches, talking about cops, talking about the treatment of cops and living as a cop, being married to a cop. Like he's just spinning off these jokes off a thread. And it's just like, for a while, it feels like you're in a completely different movie. And I would say for the next 30 minutes of that, you feel like you're in like a cop drama. And like, because his character is like the only good cop in this precinct of his, and he's kind of got a target on his back within his own precinct, because in his earlier days, not only was his father, Sam Jackson, the previous police chief at this precinct, so they already kind of have a grudge on him for that, but he also turned in a dirty cop, and because most of them are dirty themselves, they treat him like shit, like a rat. There's this whole like tension, push and pull, and air about him in this precinct that I'm so like almost like more invested in the why of that, the relationships there, than I am with the Saw stuff. Because when it tries to be a Saw film, for me, it didn't really feel like it was nailing it. And you could even say that this could be kind of the idea, because this is a copycat. This isn't John Kramer. This isn't, I forget the name, the detective that takes over for John Kramer in 3, 4, and 4, 5, and 6. Like, you could go into that for as a copycat, so maybe they're not as experienced, or they're just sloppy at this, or just inconsistent with how they're doing that. The traps themselves are just boring. They're not very interesting. They're very plain. The kills themselves work, which is what a lot of people go to these films for, is the interesting traps, the gore, the kills. And I never really thought any of that was done in a very inspired way. Even the opening trap, I was like, this is very simple. And that was the thing with a lot of it, I think, is a lot of the traps were not very imaginative. They weren't very creative. And then especially the last two traps were just very, The whole, and also the reveal, obviously, is kind of in your face. They don't really do a good job of hiding who this killer is. I picked up on it pretty early on And there's a specific scene where if you're paying attention to exactly how it's edited, it gives you the answer. So there's not really any tension on figuring out who it is, because by this point you kind of already know. And again, I don't know if this comes from Darren Lynn Bousman and just kind of coming in and doing another Saw. I feel like maybe if they had gotten somebody who had not done a Saw movie before, not been like, hey, you've done a few of these, can you come and let's try to play it safe and have somebody who's made one of these come in and do it. It just seems like he just kind of came in, slapped together a Saw film and dipped. Like maybe like if they were trying to revitalize the franchise and get it inspired into a new era, a new time, a new group of people, new audience, maybe actually have like a fresh set of eyes on it, because while the story itself has a lot of good ideas, there's a lot of good like frameworks for a good Saw movie in here that could take place right now and also be a little bit of a commentary for right now. When he comes in and tries to make it, and again, I don't know if it's him, maybe it's the studio, maybe it's somebody else, but I'm just talking in a hypothetical here, that when it tries to go back into being a Saw film, it doesn't mesh with the story that's being told parallel to it. That's why I feel like it's two separate movies. And I don't know if it's because maybe there's a fatigue with this, with Darren Lynn Bousman, but the direction of the actors themselves doesn't feel very lived in. Chris Rock, while when he's being funny, feels natural, but when he's being serious and when he's yelling and when he's getting tense, I'm not really buying it. And I know he can do drama, so I'm not sure if this is his fault or the direction, because when it comes down to it, it really feels like, and this could even be the script, because the dialogue is very cookie cutter 90s cop dialogue. If you've ever heard it in a cop film, they say this shit in this script. And it comes off almost, a lot of the line deliveries from not just Chris Rock, but a lot of the cast comes off like it's a high school play. Like, I don't know how to describe it. You just kind of have to hear it for yourself. For me, I think the best part of this was Sam Jackson, because whether or not he plays and gives himself into a character, which he rarely does. Most of the time he shows up, he's Sam Jackson, and we still love him for that. In this movie, he's Sam Jackson playing a cop, and it just feels like it's Sam Jackson. So in that way, the script, whether it's good or not, doesn't take away from his performance, because when you're there for Sam Jackson and he gives you Sam Jackson, you're at least happy with that. The movie itself, the editing, the pacing, the structure itself, was just all over the place. There's some really weird choices with the editing that's just really jarring, and it can make some of the scenes placements really confusing. The timeline in the movie is very confusing, because we have some of the flashbacks are even more telling, because it's just like they're for us, but they're set up as a flashback of a memory of one of the characters, and it continues on to a point where that character has already left this whole predicament. So, and they were kept out of the loop of what we are seeing. So how are they remembering it? At that point, it just breaks the reality that's been set up, and it's just really weird. This movie it feels to me kind of like Mortal Kombat was, 2021's Mortal Kombat, where it feels like there's a love and a passion for the setup, but the setup itself was just kind of sloppy or amateurish. And in this case, this is from somebody who has done multiple Saw films as far as directing. These writers have written one Saw film, and I haven't seen that film, so I don't know if they did a good job on that one, but from what I've heard of the reception of it, maybe not so much. It just seems like there was a genuine attempt to bring it back, but the people putting it together maybe didn't have the same level of passion as the people that were pitching it, like Chris Rock. So this might be one of those cases where some new blood, but some tested blood would have been good to be brought in for this, but who knows? This is just like with Mortal Kombat. I think this lays a groundwork for the next Saw film to be better. They've already announced that there is one coming, so we got that in the horizon. But that's kind of where I'm at on this film. I'm not really thrilled about it. I don't rate movies that much anymore, but if I did with this, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. And this is from somebody who really did enjoy the first 6 films. For better or for worse, I did really enjoy most of those. And I don't know. I had a hard time with this movie. So that being said, I'm curious if you guys seen this, sound off the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts on this film. So we can carry on the conversation after the video down there. Guys, huge shout out to our patron legends, Mandy Sherritt, Antoine Rodriguez, and Ryan Karen. Thank you guys so much for your support. Guys, we got a Discord channel set up. There's a link in the description. Follow me on all my socials down there, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.